Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. We had a day off yesterday for Eid al-Adha, and I wish everybody who celebrates Eid a happy Eid. I took this photograph at home, looking up towards the sky, early evening yesterday. It said, "Good evening, world." I like this photograph from Tiesto. Another epic summer is in the books. The shows never stop though. See you around, he says. And if you've got a chance, have a look at this interview of mine with Nerea Musita, who's hosting the Latin America, Caribbean, Africa Summit in November. Looking forward to that as well. I think it's the first effort I've seen in English-speaking Africa to reach out into Latin America meaningfully. A sell-off in fixed income is starting to snowball into a global market rout. This was from yesterday. My piece over the weekend was central banks are suppressing bond yields. John Maynard Keynes, who is widely considered one of the founders of modern macroeconomics, said the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Julian Hart Robertson, the founder of Tiger Management and a legendary fund manager, said, "Our mandate is to find the 200 best companies in the world and invest in them, and find the 200 worst companies in the world and go short on them. If the 200 best don't do better than the 200 worst, you probably should be in another business," he said. Robertson bet the bank against the Nasdaq rally in the year 2000 and lost his shirt. He was right, but the market stayed irrational, then went exuberantly irrational before correcting. If you look around the world today, it is clear that we're in the middle of an extraordinary monetary policy experiment where central bank governors like Crude in Japan and Draghi in Europe and others have become the 21st century's monetary wizards, suppressing bond yields and buying up every bond they can get their hands on. Some argue that what we've witnessed is a stealthy nationalization of the bond markets in particular. Developed bond market prices are no longer trading on fundamentals, but on the basis of demand and supply, and the perception that the central banks will continue to be a source of infinite demand. In my younger days, when I used to like to party, and I can remember within a party you would have the first rush, and then again in the early hours you might find another surge. Finally, you might start to hear the birds, and it was at that moment you knew it was all over. Like the inestimable Prince said, party like it's 1999. A lot of risk calculations are based on value at risk, VAR. Essentially, you overlay a volatility measure over the portfolio and you calculate how much money is on the line. Central banks have suppressed volatility, therefore, in real terms. Investors are now holding bigger positions at these current artificially suppressed levels. If volatility spikes, positions are going to be reduced en masse. Or to put it another way, and to borrow the lyrics from the Eagles' song Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and she said, "We are all just prisoners here of our own device." Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. "Relax," said the nightman. "We are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." What is clear is that we're at the fag end of this party. German 10-year bond yields turned positive for the first time since July. According to Deutsche Bank, developed market bonds and equities are at their most expensive ever. Therefore, my second trade of the year, my first was to be long the yen from January, is to buy put options on 10-year bonds because this is going to pop, and when it pops, the wizardry won't work anymore, and at that moment there is going to be one heck of a move. Zero Hedge tweeted RBC on today's Trader Reality. Have a read, it's pretty good. Stocks and bonds in developed markets have never been more expensive, says Deutsche Bank, ever. Home Thoughts, I was reading a short story in the New Yorker. These words caught my attention. Bruno had realized the startling sweetness of their exchange at the last instant, like the condensed milk at the bottom of his glass. In fact, Bruno realized as he waited for the butler to open the door to Falk's rooms, he had dreamed not of a situation or of a lost person or place, but merely of an image. Bruno had dreamed of a reverse sunset, a black sunset. The black sun had been haloed in purple, sinking against a field of yellow. In his dream he'd watched it sink below its horizon, only to abruptly recenter in his field of vision and begin its lonely plummet again. It was this that had brought the profound melancholy upon him. Okay, Magister Ludi, I read you see nothing beyond the horizon of the board. Now I'm going to clamber into your minimalist Zen master rock garden, and we'll see if I can muss your hair a little. Pretty good short story. The Sentry, which I'll come to in a minute because they've gone after South Sudan's leadership very strongly. I like this comment. Social media findings show that these people are in no way afraid of being caught. Shows incredible hubris. Political Reflections, Agence France Presse, 11th September. The US was commemorating the 15th anniversary of 9/11, remembering all the 2,977 victims that lost their lives 15 years ago. Hillary Clinton cancelled a campaign trip to California due to pneumonia. Somebody caught the stumble, and I was thinking to myself, look, she's 68 years old. When you got pneumonia or something like that, it can really suddenly creep up on you. And she obviously is a fierce competitor and probably did not inform her staff of the real problem, in my view. Hypothesis: the correlation between one's interpretation of Clinton's stumble and their prior support for Clinton or Trump is greater than 0.97. Hillary Clinton, like anyone who's ever been homesick from work, I'm just anxious to get back out there, see you on the trail soon. I'm of the view that Donald Trump has got a very serious chance here. Politico magazine is asking, do ideas still matter in the year of Trump and Clinton? Trump phenomenon is about cultural resentment, anger, and most of all Trump. It's primal screen politics, a middle finger pointed at the other, a nostalgia for a man cave America where white dudes didn't have to be so politically correct. Trump isn't selling detailed 9-point policy plans or a coherent worldview. He doesn't read books or even briefing papers. He's just telling America we're losers and selling us winning. Saturday Night Live used to have a fake pundit whose solution to every problem was to fix it. Now life is imitating parody. Have a look at this breaking video. President Assad performed Eid prayers from Daraya, which was the rebels' former stronghold. I'll put up a photograph of him. Delivered a defiant message on the day. And really, he's proven extremely sticky, hasn't he? US flies bombers over South Korea in show of force against the North. That remains very fragile and stressed. Since his election, barely a week has gone by without the Prime Minister going viral. This is Justin Trudeau. Canadian government is becoming an experiment in virocracy, ruled through social media. Describing he's been photographed hugging panda cubs. He gave a possibly prepared answer revealing his knowledge of quantum computing. He smiled while performing the peacock yoga pose on a conference table, and he went jogging with the President of Mexico in suggestively short shorts. Trudeau has demonstrated the political effectiveness of virocracy as a governing strategy, a way of overcoming criticism and skirting controversy by the sheer power of viral personality. Trudeau's virocracy is welded to technocracy. This is his other important innovation and the key for anyone who wants to follow his lead. Recently, at a party in Ottawa to celebrate Obama's speech to Parliament, I happened to be talking to an economist and former advisor to conservative politicians, a man who had twice voted for Stephen Harper, Trudeau's conservative predecessor. Trudeau had come to see him to seek his advice about pension plans. The economist had started sketching out proposals, stopping himself at an option he considered politically unviable. No, Trudeau told him, don't worry about the politics, that's my job. You just tell me what you think the right thing to do is. He possesses an odd combination of total narcissism and complete lack of ego. If I were his political opponents, I'd fear him deeply. He can get things done with the Canadian people barely noticing, whether they like it or not. Trudeau is beyond Clinton and Trump. He's the next generation, using virality to govern, not simply to win campaigns. Politicians in other parts of the world are experimenting with virality. Ramzan Kadyrov of Chechnya uses social media both to project a cuddly persona and to issue stern warnings to toe the official line. Putin benefits from state-sponsored internet brigades who troll critics of his regime. Boris Johnson could have been Britain's first viral politician if he'd espoused a policy that experts could actually implement. I was saying the very same thing, fewer words, last week. He is an extraordinary exponent of viral soft power. Really extraordinary. Outlier. Obama, Trudeau, and Enrique Pena Nieto in Ottawa. Have a look at that photograph. Newsweek is saying how Putin and Xi outsmarted Obama and the West at G20. G20 summits tend to be meaningless, but one appears to have been outright harmful. The signature event was when President Obama's Air Force One was not met with a staircase, and it went downhill from there. Xi took the lead in this game. By contrast, Obama had only 3 official bilateral meetings with Xi, British Prime Minister Theresa May, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The surprise was the rookie Putin. In Brisbane, Australia in 2014, he had been the outcast because of his military aggression against Ukraine. Hangzhou marked his homecoming where he broke his international isolation without changing his behavior. He did one-on-one meetings in Vladivostok, Russia, on September 3, with Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and South Korea's President Park Geun-hye. In Hangzhou, he stormed the stage with bilaterals with Xi, Turkish President Erdogan, Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President François Hollande, May, Obama, El-Sisi, and topped it off with Argentine President Mauricio Macri. Apparently, Putin was the most popular politician in Hangzhou, and the many photos show that he loved every minute of it. Saying the West got nothing would have benefited from staying out. It is time for the West to relearn diplomacy. But check if Xi and Putin offer tutorials. My point was, and I think I said it before, was that it was a stunning rebound. He is a geopolitical grandmaster, and you saw that in his rebound from the previous G20. China and Russia set to begin the largest 8-day naval war games ever in the South China Sea, and this is what I thought, from the beginning. Sort of alienating him was going to just push him into the arms of Xi Jinping. Most populous countries 2050. This is Simon Kustemacher. International markets 10-year German bond yield soars all the way to 0. Bond and equities, the hunt for yield. Have a look at this from Reuters. Markets have veto power. Probability for a rate hike in September drops to 20% after Fed's Brainard sticks to dovish tone. Very dovish, and unexpectedly so, at least by me. Euro dollar 112.30, dollar index 95.16, Japanese yen 101.91. That's firming up against Swissy 0.9720. The pound 133.18. But we got CPI today, which would see a spike. Aussie dollar was last trading at 0.7527, India rupee 66.84, South Korean won 11.1551, the real 324.87, Egyptian pound 8.88, South African rand 14.29.26. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart, 93 is still the key level, and I expect actually on balance, well, at 19% rate hike in September, I'd be a buyer of that right now. Sterling, let me put up a 1-year chart, coming back a little bit, last trading at 133.20, but I'm looking for 140. Looking at gold, I'll put up a 1-year chart, last trading there at 1328.90. Last week was all very exciting in oil, but we're now trading as if it hasn't happened. This is Javier Blas, who posted the following chart. He's correct. Zinc is this year's best performing commodity, climbing more than 41%. Coal is not far off. Coal contracts for delivery next quarter to Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Antwerp gained 30% this year. Australian benchmark contracts rose 40% this year. Bloomberg Commodities Index of 24 raw materials rose 7.9% this year. Emerging markets bond performance in August, have a look at this. Zambia and some of the peripherals really outperformed, but then we learned that the biggest emerging market debt ETF just saw its biggest one-day withdrawal in history. That's from Lisa Abramovich. Moving on to Africa, Congo's president is preparing for war against his own peoples as foreign policy. I do not think that Kabila and the people around him want to stay in power. I do think that Kabila and the people around him want to stay in power, and I would say at whatever the cost. If he leaves, the whole construction of the majority around him would disintegrate. Clooney, in a very hard-hitting report from the Sentry.org, has said that the South Sudanese leaders are amassing great wealth as the nation suffers. Well, that was obvious to all of us. Leaders of the two sides responsible for mass killings and rapes in the South Sudan conflict have amassed enormous wealth, inside and outside the country, at least some of it illegally, according to an investigative report released on Monday by a Washington advocacy group. The families and top associates of the principal opponents in the conflict, President Salva Kiir and his rival, former Vice President Riek Machar, own multi-million-dollar properties, drive luxury cars, and stay at expensive hotels, all while much of their country's population suffers from the consequences of a brutal civil war, and in many places experiences near famine conditions. The report is in full. It's called Stop the Looting in South Sudan, the Sentry. It's on rich wrap-ups. Prendergast in a kleptocracy, corruption isn't an aberration, it is at the core of the system. Clooney, this is a vicious circle going on. We're talking to the banks. South African all shares up 4.16% this year. Dollar versus rand, we're in this sort of 14.29 area, but a rate hike will surely send it up to 14.80, a rate hike in the US. Egyptian EGX 30 is up 16.87% this year. Nigerian all share down 3.72% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is down 10.17% so far this year. Seychelles, as opposition wins its first vote in decades, the opposition parties have swept to victory in Seychelles' parliamentary elections, shaking up the political landscape after decades of control by President James Michel's party. The win by l'Union Démocratique coalition, which was announced on Sunday, follows growing public frustration over economic inequality. It's historic because it's the first time we have a transition of power in one of the branches of government, the legislature. Michel conceded defeat, the people have spoken, the people have decided, and the people's decision is supreme, and my party respects the people's opinion. In the vote for a 33-seat parliament, the Electoral Commission said LDS secured 19 seats, and Michel's parti Le PEP won 14. Seychelles' economy, which depends heavily on tourism, is forecast to expand by 3.3% in 2016. Put up a photograph from the beach and a reference to an article I wrote in November 2015, the Seychelles. I was visiting there with Afreximbank. Tanzanian economy, this is from the front page of Swahili Times, which is a Tanzanian newspaper. Bloomberg is then leading luster wears off Tanzanian president's anti-corruption drive. Magufuli's quick action to stem corruption and government waste won praise from so many graft-weary East Africans that it triggered the internet meme what Magufuli would do. Now there are growing concerns that the man nicknamed Bulldozer is going too far. The government has banned 3 newspapers for reasons including inflammatory reporting and ordered the closure of 2 radio stations for allegedly broadcasting seditious content. In June, police outlawed all protests as the main opposition planned rallies against what it called Magufuli's dictatorship. Magufuli's shine, based mostly on his corruption crusade, is definitely coming off. Jared Jeffrey, an analyst at NKC African Economics. Political stability may be threatened by an opposition growing increasingly critical of Magufuli. And then, so this is something that a number of people have spoken to me about. There's a clear risk that short-term gains for government could come at the cost of long-term investment, Barclay said. Djibouti becomes becomes an Afreximbank participating state. Let me put up a photograph of the CEO and the president. Average overall scores on regional integration by regional economic community in Africa. This is from Afro Data Charts, EAC, top of the pile. Angola's inflation rises to 38% year on year in August. Middle East's leaders cross the Red Sea to woo East Africa. This is Jason Burke in The Guardian. There is a significant new layer of engagements. Ahmed Soliman, a Horn of Africa expert at London's Chatham House think tank. China is more cautious than before. The US distracted, the United Nations overstretched, and the European Union weak. This has opened up new space with commercial opportunities ranging from melon farming to port development adding to the attraction. The change is not necessarily good news for the UK and other Western nations. Talking about how Turkey is heavily involved, UAE is building physical bridgeheads to opening a new major military base in Eritrea. What we're seeing is a shift in agendas of major players in the Gulf. There's a historical context to the relationship, but the region is now being seen as part of the near abroad, an important sphere of influence. Charles Obo, for 10 years I've been driving past the US Embassy on my way to work. The queues for visas never gets any shorter. All the other guys have those kinds of queues, they're not going to win this. Robed women petrol bomb police station in Mombasa. 3 robed women tricked their way into a Mombasa police station where they stabbed one officer and set fire to the building with a petrol bomb before being shot dead, an officer and a witness said on Sunday. Police recovered an unexploded suicide vest from one of the attackers. The city of Mombasa, a large Muslim population, has been targeted by Islamist militants in recent years, although the frequency of attacks has subsided. Under the pretext of reporting a stolen phone, the women walked into the police station on Saturday morning, a knife and petrol bomb concealed in their traditional Buibui robes. While being questioned by officers, one drew a knife and the other threw a petrol bomb at the police officers. The station caught fire. Police shot the 3 and killed them. 2 officers are in hospital with wounds. Presumably, it's a terror attack. The facts, as presented, are a little bit opaque. I'll put up a photograph of the central police station in Mombasa reportedly under attack from unknown gunmen. I urge the government of Kenya to issue a fresh sovereign bond. Kenya needs to take its opportunity with both hands and immediately. Kenya has seen yields on its 10-year Eurobond fall dramatically to just around 7%. This is an outstanding level. Add 50 basis points for a concession and you get a rate of around 760. Commercial Bank of Africa has slashed interest rates down to 12.9%. CBA drives down cost of loans with CBRR pricing, the two benchmark rates, the central bank rate and the Kenya Bankers Reference Rate. Kenya Bankers Reference Rate is based more on the T-bill market. It's lower, and CBA have elected to set their interest rate cap using that as the benchmark, which is an interesting development. Kenya shilling 101.199. Nairobi all-share down 9.75% this year, but it's bounced 1.41% since September the 5th. NSE 20 down 20.6% this year, but 91.43 points above the 30th of August 2016 multi-year closing low. You can check out every listed share via the link if you scroll down Rich Wrap-Ups. And then just a couple of shares to talk about. Sentry up 116.66% since the 26th of August. Centum up 15.13% since the market learnt about the share buyback. Kengen up 10% in September. Once again, I'm grateful that you stopped by. I deeply appreciate it, and I wish you a tremendous week.